Tell all you love that you love them so, because even if you do, they might not know, and one day we'll all be gone. Taste the wind, don't let it blow on by. Sing songs of love, let the music get you high, and when it's said and done, you'll know the sun will shine on.
May 16th, 2023, about noon, I was walking on my way to this station, Channel 27, to tape my weekly program. I was on Broadway Street. I saw a vehicle coming fast, some distance away. I foolishly crossed the street. I thought I could make it across. I should have waited. And I almost made it across, but I'm quite sure the hit-and-run driver sped up a bit to intentionally hit me. I hope the hit-and-run driver, whoever he or she was, who deliberately hit me May 16th, someday changes. It's possible. I'm not holding my breath. It may never happen, but it's possible. I hope that person changes to a much better way of living. I thank South Broadway librarians, Sarah and Laura, and other people who came soon to help me as I lay crumpled on the street. I was a patient in the UNM hospital 9 days, then 19 days in Loveless Rehab. I thank the UNM hospital surgeon, Dr. Chafee, who put a titanium rod in my right leg from my knee to my hip, and steel in my right arm. I thank the many doctors, nurses, therapists, cleaning staff, food staff, especially the man named G, in charge of Loveless Rehab Dietary, for his special effort to see that I got the right food. Because I'm a raw foods vegan, I eat only raw plant foods plus honey and bee pollen. I thank the dozens and dozens of people who visited me or called me or wrote me at UNM Hospital, Loveless Rehab, and my home. I thank some persons who donated hours of their time to give me rides to El Super grocery store or to the co-op, and to help me at home when I first got there, the first weeks from rehab when I needed help. I say to the many friends who made no contact after the hit and run May 16th, even if we cannot fix someone's serious injury or sickness, it is so important to call or to visit, to listen and to be present so the person suffering feels less alone, wondering why certain friends made no contact. When someone I know is sick or injured, I need to always visit or help or at least phone the person a few minutes, showing some concern. In my life, I aim to forgive everybody who does me wrong, but not to trust the person until they prove they can be trusted. I stopped buying avocados from Mexico. Why? Armed gangs threaten and terrorize many avocado growers in Mexico. If the growers refuse to pay the armed gangs beat up or murder the avocado growers. So I refuse to pay for murder. I buy no avocados from Mexico. I buy avocados from Peru, Colombia, Dominican Republic, or the U.S. I want all my friends to feel free to tell me anything from their lives, even if they know I strongly disagree. I do not want them to hide those things from me. I want all my friends to be open and honest with me, even when we strongly disagree. Sadly, most men in the United States are overweight or fat. And the fatter a man is, the more likely for him to have problems getting a hard-on, especially as he gets older. I strongly condemn fire cremation of dead bodies. Fire cremation worsens the climate crisis. 1,400 to 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit for cremating dead bodies. 2 to 4 hours or more, depending how big or fat the person was. No to fire cremation if we give a damn about our Mother Earth. 5 years ago, I built my coffin out of 1/2-inch plywood for about $60. I bought a plot at the beautiful dirt cemetery, San Jose de Armijo, on Arenal, on Albuquerque's west side. The plots there are much cheaper than Albuquerque's large grass cemeteries. No vault, no liner are required at San Jose de Armijo. Vaults and liners are very expensive, and they are required at the large grass cemeteries. No embalming for my body. Why waste big money on poison chemicals in the ground? And why waste water in this desert for grass, for decaying dead bodies? I'm glad for a plot in the beautiful dirt cemetery, San Jose de Armijo. Watch the powerful movie Till, that's T as in Tom, I-L-L, about the brutal torture and murder of black 14-year-old Emmett Till from Chicago when he visited relatives in the state of Mississippi in 1955. The two white men who brutally tortured and murdered Emmett Till were found not guilty by an all-white jury. And years later, these two white men confessed to Emmett Till's murder in an interview for Look magazine. These two white men who brutally tortured and murdered Emmett Till were paid $4,000 by Look magazine for that interview. Emmett Till's mother in Chicago made sure her beloved son's body was in an open casket to show the world the evil of white racism. I urge you to watch that powerful movie, Till, T as in Tom, I-L-L. Our library system has 30 copies of that DVD, Till, T-I-L-L. A new biography of Martin Luther King Jr. is entitled King, A Life. The book shows how human the prophet Martin Luther King Jr. was. As a youth, Martin Luther King Jr. once tried to commit suicide. As an adult, he was hospitalized several times for depression. Our library has 5 copies of this new biography, King, A Life. King, A Life, by Jonathan Eig, E-I-G. When we're suffering in a crisis in our lives, we need to reach out to other people who have faced and coped with the same kind of crisis, because they understand. Whereas many other friends who've never gone through that crisis that we're going through do not quite know what to say. They've never experienced it. Many cops never beat up, never shoot anyone, but many of those cops have seen other cops wrongly beat up or shoot someone, but sadly, usually they do not tell us what they have seen the other cops do. Sadly, they fear not getting promoted, or they fear being moved to a lower job. And sadly, these cops who have not wrongly beat up or shot anyone, but have watched other cops do those things, they fear being shunned or ostracized by other cops if they tell the public the truth. Sadly, they fear not being backed up by other cops in a crisis. And these fears shut them up about the evils that they have seen certain cops do to people. If I have promised to visit or meet up with someone, I need to be there or call the person if I'm not coming. How do I feel if someone who promises does not show up and does not call? I love to cry, and I really mean that. I love to cry. If I'm deeply moved by a song, a movie, a memory, crying from love and sorrow heals us, both men and women. I treasure my tears. And parents, never, never tell your young boys, men don't cry. Real men in touch with their feelings do cry. And sadly, men who stuff their feelings, feeling they can't cry, and especially not cry in the presence of others, they often become very depressed and turn to booze, or very angry and start hitting their family or other people. We need the freedom as men to cry out of love and out of sorrow with no shame at all. Listen to Democracy Now! On KUNM 89.9 FM radio, Monday through Friday, 4 to 5 p.m. Democracy Now! KUNM radio, 89.9 FM, from 4 to 5 in the afternoons, Monday through Friday. Much better news reporting than most other radio and TV news. Much better. Democracy Now! Is on 1,500 radio and TV stations and the internet. I must make sure the man I have sex with wants to have sex with me. Just because he doesn't say no is not good enough to show he wants to. He needs to say and mean yes for me to have sex with him. No matter how many times he and I have had sex in the past, that does not guarantee he wants to do it now. I must never have sex with anyone on booze or other drugs, because that man cannot give consent with a clear mind in touch with his feelings. If the man decides during our sex he wants to stop for any reason, I need to stop, even if I'm close to coming in orgasm. 50 years ago, September 11th, 1973, the United States government backed the overthrow of the oldest democracy in Latin America, the nation of Chile. The war criminals, U.S. President Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger, then supported the bloody dictator in Chile, Pinochet. Pinochet murdered, tortured, disappeared 40,000 people for the next 17 years in Chile. And this government supported his brutal murders, tortures, disappearances for 17 years, 40,000 people. Many men, many women, straight, gay, bisexual, are able to be openly and deeply in love with more than one person at the same time. I am one of those people. I am able to be openly and honestly, deeply in love with more than one man at the same time. We teach children to share food, to share toys, to share friends. How selfish, how cruel the child who demands that his child friend have no other friends, no other playmates except him. We adults can learn to share our lovers with others. We enjoy a variety of flowers, fruits, vegetables, colors, books, songs, and many of us also enjoy a variety of lovers and do it openly, honestly. A loving parent can have a deep, special bond with each one of several children. Can someone be a faithful parent only if he or she has and loves just one child? I refuse to let any man cage me or fence me in romantically. So I have no right to cage him or fence him in. And every man I've been in love with has taught me, helping me become a better and wiser friend and lover. And all romantic relationships between a man and a woman, between men, between women, face hurdles, bumps, conflicts. Why put all our eggs into one basket? Invest our hearts in more than one lover. Do it honestly with all involved. So if one lover backs out or moves away or dies, we may feel less desperate, less abandoned, less devastated, more able to cope in our sad loss. I do not own any man, no matter how deeply I'm in love with him. Good romance is never slavery. I cannot make any man fall in love with me. I cannot make any man stay in love with me. And I'm a fool if I try to force him. Hell no to cover-ups. Hell no to lies. Hell no to cheating. Hell no to double standards. Hell no to insane jealousy. But yes, 100 times yes, to deep intimacy and sexual pleasure shared generously with more than one person. Some people get seriously ill from COVID vaccinations, but rarely, if ever, do radio, television, and newspapers tell us about people who get seriously ill from COVID vaccinations. Last week, a man I know here in Albuquerque, and I had not seen him for over 4 months since before the May 16th hit and run that I suffered. This man told me his second vaccination for COVID put him in the hospital. And his third vaccination for COVID put him back in the hospital, and he was told he was 2 hours away from dying. And for him never again to have a COVID vaccination. When do you hear that? On radio or TV news. I've had no COVID vaccinations, and I have never taken a flu shot. I strengthened my immunity against COVID, against flu, naturally. I drink no booze. I smoke no cigarettes. I take no street drugs. And since I got out of the hospital and rehab in June, after my May 16th hit and run, I have swallowed no pharmacy drugs, no prescription drugs at all. Before the hit and run, I had taken no prescription drugs for over 25 years and had gone to no medical doctor for over 25 years. I eat only raw plant foods plus honey and bee pollen. Raw plant foods are living. Cooked food is dead. Take any seed on earth, cook it, plant it, water it, pray, hope. It'll never grow. Cooked seeds are dead. Cooked food is dead. We need living food for the best health. And don't get me wrong, I'm going to die, we're all going to die, but I do my damnedest every day to stay as healthy as possible, to as close as possible to the day I die. Why suffer, as millions do, for weeks, months, years, even decades before they die? And usually it can be prevented. If people got really serious about living healthy in every way, most hospital beds would be empty. But instead, here in Albuquerque, the Presbyterian Hospital, a huge addition, the University Hospital, a huge addition, which show how terribly most people, or many people at least, treat their bodies. Our bodies are far more important to take care of than any car, a lawn, a house, pets. I eat no meat, no dairy, no sugar shit, no ice cream, no cookies, no candy, no donuts, no cake. My sweets are lots of fresh fruit, apples, peaches, pears, grapes, melons, avocados. I sunbathe. We need vitamin D. And if you're walking out with your body covered except for your hands and your face, you're not getting enough sun. We need sunshine on our skin, preferably all of our skin, or at least most of it, especially as we go into the fall and winter when it requires more time in the sun to get enough vitamin D. I walk many blocks. I walk to the station today, pulling my cart. I have my, well, I borrowed this from a friend, a metal cane with 4 prongs, and part of the time I just kind of carry it, but it's kind of handy if I think I need it. I dance. I enjoyed dancing at the St. Francis Fiesta this past Saturday and Sunday. I'm recording this program on September 26th, but I realize you won't be seeing it for some days. But I enjoyed dancing there at St. Francis Fiesta. 2 days. I can't dance quite as freely as I did before the hit and run, but I'm glad to be able to dance at all. And last Friday evening, I enjoyed dancing at La Familia Market in the South Valley at the Dolores Huerta Park. I bounce on my small trampoline. I have many friends. We need friends. All of us need friends. Loneliness is a killer. Loneliness is as deadly as smoking cigarettes. I eat lots of healthy wild greens, calitas in Spanish, or in English, lamb's quarter, in my garden. I blend those greens with apples. Greens are so important. The darker the green, the better. And the wild greens, like calitas, are even better than the common garden greens. Wild greens, what many people would think of as just weeds, are survivors. They don't have to be babied nearly as much as common garden greens. I go to bed usually between 9 and 10 in the evening and get up soon after 6 a.m. My main smoothies are raw flaxseed, pumpkin seeds, split green peas, the healing herbs, garlic, hot red chili pepper, fenugreek, maca, puncture vine, ginkgo leaves, powder arco, cat's claw, amla, hawthorn berry, and yerba mate. Tell me if you ever want to taste that in person. And I also include apples and water, of course. I cook no food, but if you do cook food, I urge you never to use a gas stove. Get rid of the damn gas stove. Besides methane and the poison benzene, gas stoves have 21 air pollutants. The dangerous pollution goes throughout the whole house, not just the kitchen. When the stove is on, much of the awful poison benzene is in the home's air. Benzene can cause anemia. Benzene can cause leukemia. Usually, using a gas stove poisons the home's air like smoking cigarettes. Get rid of the damn gas stove if you care about the health of you and your family. I use no stove, period. I don't cook food, but if you're going to cook food, don't use gas. Check out the Nutrition Facts website, Nutrition Facts, hosted by Dr. Michael Grieger. strong, important information on getting healthy, staying healthy, on eating plant foods. Also, the web-based journal, the International Journal of Disease Prevention and Reversal. Imagine, the International Journal of Disease Prevention and Reversal on the web. Dale Gunther shot and killed my grandparents, my father's parents, June 25th, 1976. My grandfather, Lloyd Schrader, was 85. My grandmother, Annie Schrader, was 82. They were retired farmers in northern Illinois, west of Chicago. Dale Gunther was a severely abused 18-year-old white man from that area. Dale shot my grandparents in their bed as he stood outside their bedroom window. And for almost 6 years, our family did not know who murdered my grandparents. In 1982, Dale was arrested. Dale confessed to murdering my grandparents. And months later, I called the jail chaplain where Dale was. I asked the chaplain if Dale was going to church services. The chaplain told me he was attending church services, so I thought Dale was truly regretting killing my grandparents. I wrote to Dale then. I offered him my forgiveness and my friendship. And if someday someone would murder me, I asked my friends, my family, to offer forgiveness and friendship to whoever killed me, especially if that person strongly regrets having killed me. Dale wrote me in response to my letter where I offered him forgiveness. And he deeply repented for killing my grandparents. I visited Dale twice in prison. The first time I visited him in prison, tears came to Dale's eyes. He greatly appreciated my forgiveness, my friendship. Dale suffered terrible depression from having flashbacks of shooting and killing my grandparents. Memory is the worst punishment for anyone with a strong conscience. Our consciences are turned on by people who love us deeply. As Dale looked back to that hellish night, June 25th, 1976, he did not know why he murdered my grandparents. Dale wanted to get out of prison someday and show people he could live a good life. Dale wrote a sincere letter of apology to our family. And 2 area newspapers back there in Illinois published that letter of apology that Dale wrote. In November 1989, at age 31, Dale killed himself in prison. After Dale died, Dale's mother, whom I never met, wrote me, thanking me for befriending Dale. I have 60 letters in my room at home that Dale wrote me from prison. 60 letters. Dale was not born evil. No one is born evil. Sadly, Dale's father beat Dale as a kid. Hurt people hurt other people unless and until they change and they heal inside. With much help and much time, severely abused people can heal, can change. I never met Dale's father. Did Dale's father ever realize, especially after Dale was arrested for murdering my grandparents, how beating his son, Dale, made Dale violent and dangerous? Did Dale's father ever realize that? Was Dale's father beaten as a kid himself? Did beating kids go back generations in that family? Many questions. I do not know the answers. Dale's mother was a Sunday school teacher. Why did she not stop Dale's father from beating Dale? Was Dale's mother afraid of Dale's father? Did he beat her also? Or did Dale's mother believe the Bible's evil verse in Proverbs, urging fathers to beat their sons? One of the most evil verses in the whole Bible concerning relationships between parents and children, where this verse in Proverbs approves fathers beating their sons. Evil, absolutely evil. I'm so glad my father did not beat me. Maybe one time my father hit me. It's a hazy memory. Imagine if Dale's father had never beaten Dale. Imagine if Dale's father had warmly hugged Dale every day. Parents, never beat, never hit your sons or your daughters. Fathers and mothers, hug warmly both your sons and your daughters every day. Every day. We need it. And even if your parents never hugged you, learn from their tragic mistake. Hug your children, your sons, your daughters every day. And tell them you love them, even if you're angry with them. Sadly, I never remember my father hugging me when I was a boy growing up. But the very last time I saw my dad alive, when he was 81 and I was 48, he made the first move to hug me as I left our farm in Illinois to return to Albuquerque. And that was the last time I saw my dad alive. Dale Gunther's older brother was a U.S. soldier. I'm not sure if Dale's brother was in Vietnam. if his brother was in combat in Vietnam, Dale's brother may have killed kids and grandparents as a U.S. soldier. Are grandparents in Vietnam less human? Are grandparents in Vietnam less precious than my U.S. white grandparents? In Dale's letters, Dale opened his life to me. He bared his soul to me. In school, Dale did not like to shower with other boys. Why? Because his cock was so small. So, sadly, Dale at 18 did not measure up as a man in the eyes of his father, who beat him over and over and over. Dale did not measure up as a man in the eyes of his older brother, who may have seen Dale as a punk kid. Dale did not measure up as a man in the eyes of his male schoolmates. He was the kid with a small cock. Dale had a girlfriend, and they later had children before Dale was arrested and confessed to murdering my grandparents. Dale told me, if they do not want us to kill, why do they make movies about killing? Sadly, actors get filthy rich glamorizing murder. Actors make millions of dollars making murder look cool and exciting. And I, Don Schrader, foolishly wasted many precious hours as a teenager, addicted to violent westerns on television. Now I would not watch those TV westerns for $1,000 an hour. With much help, we can wake up, we can make huge, good changes. Fortunately, my father did not beat me. Dale's father beat him. And just as Dale, as a kid, was a helpless victim of his father's evil cruelty, Dale made my grandparents helpless victims of his evil cruelty when he shot and killed them in bed. Imagine if U.S. presidents, U.S. generals publicly repented and apologized for murdering people in U.S. wars, as Dale publicly repented and apologized for murdering my grandparents. Sadly, many churchgoers who knew my grandparents probably considered Dale a no-good, hopeless killer. But sadly, some of these churchgoers were proud to have their sons and their daughters or grandchildren become U.S. soldiers, trained and equipped as professional hired killers to murder on command with no conscience. Did any of these churchgoers who knew my grandparents realize how federal income tax dollars pay for the murder of grandparents and kids and people of all ages in other nations, in U.S. wars? None of us can say for sure we would not have committed the evil Dale committed if we had suffered the severe abuse he suffered. We are all more than the worst thing we did in our lives, or almost did. I strongly oppose all wars by the United States, by Russia, or by any other government. I refuse to go murder people in the Vietnam War. The draft board allowed me to do 2 years of non-military community service instead of becoming a U.S. soldier. I worked with youth in a farm worker community in Arizona for over a year. I transferred to Albuquerque to finish my 2 years of non-military community service instead of going to murder people in Vietnam. And that's how I first moved to Albuquerque in June 1970, over 53 years ago. I later realized that for me to pay federal income tax, to train and equip young people to become professional hired killers, to train and equip largely people of color and of lower income, to become professional hired killers, to murder on command with no conscience, that would be more evil than for me to be a soldier pulling the trigger myself. And so for 44 years, I have paid no federal income tax, not one damn bloody penny. From 1/3 to 1/2 of federal income tax goes for U.S. wars, past, present, and future. For years, I have enjoyed living simply below the federal income taxable level and below the U.S. poverty level. I have enough. I enjoy living simply. Many climate scientists know far more about the climate crisis than I will ever know, ever understand. But I ask the climate scientists, have you made huge changes in how you live because of what you know about the climate catastrophe? Have you changed how and how much you travel? Have you changed the size of home you live in, moving to a much smaller place? Have you stopped eating meat and dairy? Are you living much more simply because of what you know about the climate crisis? Have you stopped flying thousands of miles to climate conferences or for pleasure vacations? If not, if you haven't changed your life, if you still live like everybody else, many who even deny the climate crisis or say, oh, humans aren't causing it, what good is all your information in your head and the books you write, the articles you write on the climate crisis? What good is it? Many people who are not climate scientists may not take seriously the extreme danger if you, who know far more facts, refuse to change your own lives. Prophet Martin Luther King Jr. damned the Vietnam War in his most controversial speech on April 4th, 1967, exactly 1 year before he was assassinated. King damned the U.S. mass murder of Vietnamese people. King said the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today is my own government. And it's still true. The so-called liberal media, the New York Times, the Washington Post, many newspapers nationwide condemned King's strong message of truth. Many whites, many blacks, the White House, even most of King's inner circle of black leaders condemned his strong message of truth, damning the Vietnam War. King suffered much hatred, many death threats, FBI persecution. And why is his speech damning the Vietnam War far less known, far less honored than his I Have a Dream speech? Sadly, most King's celebrations today castrate King's message. Sadly, most King's celebrations do not emphasize his strong stand against nuclear weapons, King's strong stand against the Vietnam War, against the evils of capitalism and the U.S. empire. Martin Luther King Jr. was a prophet, a very human prophet, not a politician, not a rock star. He refused to silence his conscience to get the popular support of millions. He refused to sell out his convictions to get the approval of the powerful. This evening, I thank Mark and Travis for their excellent help. And in the past dozens of times, and Eddie in the past dozens of times, for running the cameras and controls for my program. And thanks to all of you watching. And if you see me walking on the street or at some event, I invite you to talk with me, please, if you want to. I love personal questions. How many friends or relatives tell you that? I love personal questions. I treasure heart-to-heart conversation. To your health, my fresh piss. I started drinking my piss for health. November 10th, 1999. Good night.
Live every day as if it were the last, because before you know it, time goes past and life's just not that long. Tell all you love that you love them so, because even if you do, they might not know, and one day we'll all be